Griffin Fossil production.
Hey, Community Talk family, it's your guy Sloan Griffin here with a special edition tonight to talk about some issues that a lot of folks in Blythewood in the community has been having, or questions that you may be having when it comes to water. As most of you know, that council renegotiated the contract earlier. This year it was signed, but it was negotiated last year, to my understanding. And we entered a new contract. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions from a lot of you. There's some questions that you may have pertaining to quality, smell, billing issues, and things of that sort. So felt like it was a great opportunity to reach out to the town of Winnsboro, who supplies our water, and talk to the head guy himself, Mayor Gaddy. So tonight, you will hear from Mayor Gaddy, and we will hear from some of the residents live online here. So if any of you out there have any questions, please make sure that you log on to this link here. You will be popped in live on the screen. You can close your camera off if you don't want to be seen, that's fine. But it's important to make sure that your voice is heard, and let's get some answers to your questions. But a little bit of housekeeping for tonight. We want to make sure that we be respectable to our guests tonight, as just like anyone. Um, you don't have to come on to talk to the people. So we want to be mindful of that and be respectable on that. So tonight on some questions, I will limit time on those to a 2 to 5 minute. Depends on the answers that we're getting back to make sure that you're getting some closure to your questions. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Mayor Roger Gaddy on from the town of Winnsboro. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me tonight, and appreciate the opportunity to try to clear up some of the issues that you might be having. I certainly don't have the answers to everything. Readily admit that. And if I can't answer the questions that you have or the issues, then certainly we'll try to give you the resource or a venue that you may be able to get those questions answered. Your council member was kind enough to forward me some of the questions and concerns that you have. And I thought the first thing I'd do is kind of go through the list of the things that he forwarded to me and try to give you some explanation or understanding of some of the causes and reasonings. And some of them I don't have answers to, but thought I'd go through that. I have Trip Peak here with me, who's the director in charge of our water department and takes care of the water there in Blythewood and here in Winnsboro and the out of county folks also. And so I'm just going to go through some of the questions that Mr. Griffin forwarded to me and try to go over there. And you may need some additional explanation. I may or may not be able to give it to you, but we'll try to get that taken care of for you. One of the questions and problems that some of the residents brought up was, why does sometimes the water have an odor to it or have a brown discoloration? And some of the lines in Blythewood are what we call dead end lines. They're not in a circular pattern where the water can flow all the time. And a lot of times, if that water does not move at a certain volume through that line, that water sits there, and for lack of a better term, can kind of stagnate. Whenever it leaves our plant, it's checked, and it's checked by DHEC every day. We have to send them samples to make sure the quality of our water is up to their standards and that it's potable and doesn't have an abnormal bacterial count or any other sort of issues that may be bothersome. With that being said, that water can, if you don't have adequate flow through that pipe, that water can stagnate and can develop an odor to it and some brownish discoloration. If that seems to be a problem where you are, and there's multiple lines like that in Blythewood where maybe a subdivision was developed and those lines go out a road and there's not another road behind it to make a loop or to make a circular pattern, then that's where we run into those issues. Now, if you have a bunch of homes on that line, they'll use enough water drinking and bathing and showering and washing dishes that you don't have a problem with it. But if you do, you can call our water department. They will come out and look at that line and purge that line to purge any of the water that may have been sitting in it for too long. And I'm not sure what the timetable is that it takes for that water to sit there without enough volume through it to cause that problem. But it's from the lack of flow or the lack of the use of the water to create enough volume to come through that pipe. I know another issue that everybody is concerned about, and we're concerned about here in Winnsboro too, is the variability of the meter reading. Sometimes you may get a water bill that's, and if you look on your bill, it should say what it is. It may say 28 days. It may say as high as 38 days. Some of that is because all of the meters are supposed to be read by meter readers, which are human. There is some human error in that. Weather is always a factor, and if it's raining like the Dickens, or if you're having problems in the wintertime, a lot of times those meter readers can't get out to read those meters, and it prolongs that billing cycle to the point that, if you have a 28-day cycle one time and it's 35 the next, then that bill's going to be 25% higher that long time than it will be for that shorter period of time. I was talking with Mr. Peak earlier, and he said there was a lady in Winnsboro that was complaining about her water bill, and said that that said she used 21,000 gallons, and he went back and researched her bill, and it ended up that she used about 7,000 gallons a month. And whenever he researched her account, she had not been charged, or the meter had not been read for the previous 2 months. And so that was really a 3-month bill that she had. If you average out that 21,000 gallons, that comes to her usual 7,000 gallons a month. She had used that water. She just hadn't paid for it yet. And I know that's frustrating, as it was for her, to get that. So we are looking at in the new contract, it said that we would make every effort to keep those billable days to as close to 34 as we could, so there'd be a better consistency in the billing cycle and less variability in your bills. The other thing that we're looking at is town of Winnsboro is looking at getting automated meter reading. Those are these digital things where you don't actually have to have that meter visually looked at. It's done electronically, like a lot of these other things are that people that are my age may not fully understand. And we were going to use the Blythewood area as our initial area to do that. So if and when it comes, y'all will be the first people to get it. So far, we've done some investigation of that, and looks like the cost to do that would be about $800,000. Now, most of the communities that we talked with that have put that in said that it really makes some money, because they find a lot of less variability in the bills, and there's probably some water that's not being billed for. And if you have a bill that's higher than you think it ought to be, and you've got a concern about it, you can always call our water department. If you have trouble getting through on our water department, if you look at our homepage on the website, there's a place for comments. Our assistant town manager, Lorraine Abel, looks at those every morning, where you can type something in that you'd like a call about it. She follows up on it. And actually, Trip Peak's email address is on that homepage too. So you can, for those of y'all that are computer savvy, and it must be most of the people that are watching or doing this tonight, I'm sure, can actually send him an email about a problem that you might have. And I think it's always, in today's climate of automation, I think it's always frustrating to people. It's frustrating to me whenever I call anything, whether it be a business or a hospital or an office, including my own office. It's extremely frustrating not to be able to talk to a person and have to go through that automated system. And even whenever you leave a message, you still have to have a human being pick up that phone or return that phone call. And it's extremely frustrating when that doesn't happen. And I feel your pain, and we're certainly trying to be as responsive as we can, and we'll continue to try to do that. We've also, apparently, there's been some people that had some questions about a pink ring around the bottom of their drain. Bacteria. And typically that is a bacteria that may be either sitting in your toilet bowl too long, or you've got a bacterial problem there. Whenever that water, of course, we're responsible to get the water to your property line. What happens to that water whenever it goes from your edge of your property line in your pipe, into your home, into your plumbing, into your toilet bowl, or into your water processor, or water in your refrigerator? Some of that can be a plumbing problem that you might have, but that pink ring is probably some excess bacteria, but it should not be coming from the water that you get at the edge of your property line as it comes through our pipes, unless you seem to be having a problem with the odor or that brown discoloration where the line needs purging. But if you're on a looped line where that thing makes a circuit and that water is flowing all the time, then you may need to look at your own plumbing, and there may be times when you need to flush that toilet if it's in a spare bedroom when you're not used it very much, to make sure that water gets purged through there. And that's the same thing that's true with the lady had a question, or someone had a question about a black ring around the top of their toilet. That typically is some bacteria or fungus in there. Lady had a question about why is there, is there a black material in the filter or faucet? And that's the same sort of thing that you need to look at. Make sure you're using that, because if it gets in a line that goes from your main line to your house and it goes to your bathroom, and that's a spare bathroom that you don't use, and I can guarantee you bacteria is going to grow in there. The chloramines that we use to purify the water, to sterilize the water, they do have they don't have a lifetime warranty. Those chemicals wear out after a while, and so that's what causes the overgrowth of the bacteria.
Can I pause? Can we take a pause here for a second? I need to say something, sir. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So for anyone out there trying to log in, I see a few folks trying to log in to speak. When you're logging in, you need to give permission for your mic, your microphone, and your camera. Whether you on your phone, it's easier from your phone. But if you're on the computer, you have to give permission for those devices before you get in. I've seen a few folks log in, but I can't bring you into the show until you give permission for that. So sorry about that, sir. You have the floor now.
That's no problem. I get told that all the time at some of my other meetings. They say, we can't hear you. You need to turn your mic on. So, I'm sure a lot of people need reminders and some help with that, as I often do. There was also a question or concern about sometimes bills being higher than people think they ought to be. And all you have to do is call our department and we will send somebody out to check your meter. And if you're very concerned about it, we can pull that meter and send it off and have it tested. There's a charge for that. If that meter's been around for a long time, I don't recommend that you do that necessarily, because as those meters get older, they run slower, not faster. So if you've had a meter there for a long time and you're concerned about the meter not working right, just from past experience, most of the time, if you get a new meter, you're even more unhappy with it than you were with your old one.
Yes, sir.
And
so
I think that was the majority of some of the questions.
Yes, sir.
There was a question, I think, about water rates too. We are, we did in our new contract decrease our cost to the Blythewood area. We made it to the same charge as our out of city constituents or water users. That was about a 13% decrease in your water bill. Now, we did have to kind of chip away at some of that, take about half of it back, because we did put in for y'all that have been around for a long time. Remember, in 2008, we had a drought. And whenever we had that drought that affected all of South Carolina, water was in short supply, and we had to limit people washing their cars and watering their lawns. And Winnsboro looked at that situation and said, we don't want that to have to happen again. So we decided that we would run a water line to the Broad River to pull water out of the Broad River to replenish our city reservoir whenever we need it. And that was to the tune of about $12 million. And one of the requirements of getting that money from to do that project from the Department of Commerce is you have to have the majority of that bond paid for by the utility that it's benefiting. In Winnsboro, the way we do our budget, we don't have any city taxes in Winnsboro. And we did away with that with the 1 cent sales tax about 15 years ago. And the way that we fund our streets and sanitation that we have, our fire department, our public safety, our streets and sanitation. The way that we fund that is through our utilities, through water, sewer, electricity, and gas. And so we have to use, and so with the Department of Commerce, whenever we floated that bond and required us to get the majority of our money to pay back that bond from the water department, we couldn't transfer it from electricity and gas, which we have done in the past for a number of years. But for this specific project, we weren't allowed to do that, to repay that bill. And we did have a company come in and look at our water rates and make sure that we were competitive and to decide what we needed to do to be able to generate enough money to help repay that bond. We decreased, and your council member's not going to like this, but we decreased your rates about 13%. We had to take away about 6 or 7% of that for an increase. The town of Blythewood increased their franchise rate from 3 to 5%, which was about a 66% increase that they did. And that franchise fee, that's a 5% on top of what we charge for the water. So 5% of your water bill goes to the town of Blythewood, which is a very good deal for them because they don't have to maintain the lines. They don't have to do any billing. They don't have to do anything but collect that money and figure out how they're going to spend it. Which is a good situation to be in.
Yes, sir. So we got a couple residents in the waiting room.
All right.
That wants to come on.
That's about all I had to say, Sloan. I think that
yes, sir.
All the questions you sent me. So
yes, sir. And we'll do a complete recap at the end. We'll give some folks a chance here to ask some questions. So and we also have the mayor, Mayor Franklin, is on too. So we're going to bring him in first, give him a short piece to make some remarks, and he'll stay on just in case some residents have some questions on our end as well. Mayor Franklin, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Hey, Councilman Griffin, I just wanted to pop in. I was on the Planning Commission Zoom meeting. Apologize for coming in late, but I personally wanted to thank Mayor Gaddy for taking his time to talk through this issue. And I want to thank you, Councilman Griffin, for your leadership in putting this together. A lot of citizens have asked. A lot of them have called me. I'm sure they called Mayor Gaddy and the water company up there. But this dialogue is going to help things, I'm sure, going forward with a new 20-year contract. And, he's waiting on upgrades just like everyone as far as those new modern meters go. I think that'll solve the meter reading issue. And but it's good to let the folks that are concerned about this know that they're not being ignored and you're bringing it to the forefront. And we appreciate your dialogue. And I'll stand by for any questions y'all have. Thank you again, Mayor Gaddy. We appreciate you.
You're more than welcome. Glad
Thank you.
To help.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
And next, we're going to bring Miss Irene on.
Hello.
How you doing, Miss Irene?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. So what's your question for tonight?
All right. My question is, up north in New Jersey, our water was always treated between having chlorine or fluoride and things like that in it. And that always helped with smells and then the bacterial growth that you get either in your sink or in the drain or whatever. So I'm just wondering, I do not smell chlorine in our water down here, which our water we get from Columbia. So I'm wondering, does the water get treated down here with anything like chlorine, for example?
And I'm having trouble hearing you a little bit. It's kind of breaking up and crackly. That's why it may be Sloan. Sloan, maybe you can repeat the question. Maybe I can but your voice was kind of doing it too. And mine might have been doing it to y'all where you couldn't understand me very well.
I can hear you clear now. I'm sorry, Miss Irene. Could you repeat that?
The question that I have is, does the water from Winnsboro and or from Columbia get treated like with chlorine?
Well, they both use the same type of purification process, which is a chloramine system. They used to use chlorine, and We switched over several years ago.
Yes, it's a combination of chlorine and ammonia.
Yeah.
Which creates the chloramines, which disinfects the line.
It is a combination of chlorine and ammonia, which is kind of the industry standard, and it's the same one that Columbia uses. Whenever in 2008, whenever we had that drought, we went to Columbia to get water from them to help the Blythewood community. And finally, it was somewhat of an arduous process. And in all honesty, Columbia, in my opinion, Columbia wasn't as cooperative as they could have and should have been. It did eventually happen, but only whenever they needed a favor from our senator. They sat on it for about a year. I still don't like that, but anyway, it's the same. it's the same chemical process to keep the bacteria growth retarded in it, and we're nowhere near as dependent on Columbia as we were. We pull enough water out of the Broad River now that we have a long-term sustainable water supply, which we needed to do that for the Blythewood area that we knew was going to grow, and also for the prospect of industrial recruitment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We could smell it up north, living in New Jersey. We could smell it very clearly. But down here, we smell nothing in the water except most of the time a moldy smell.
A moldy smell?
A moldy smell. And I had to start putting the chlorine blocks in my toilet tank to stop the black mold and stuff from growing in the toilet.
And that may be a lack of use of the volume.
No, that is definitely not the problem.
Well, I can tell you, unless you live on a dead line, that water that reaches your property line, unless it's one of those lines that needs purging, there shouldn't be any significant bacteria growing in that. And if you're having that issue, if you will let us know or leave a message on the homepage or call the water department, they can come out there and purge that line, which they do on some of the lines periodically.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
But if you'll let us know, I think they can put it on their schedule to purge that line. Okay. And help alleviate that problem and decrease the use of your packets you have to use.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, ma'am. So next we have Miss Roxanne Hittigan. Miss Roxanne, how you doing?
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am. What's your question for the mayor?
My question is that, I know that. Good evening, Howard. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little bit, but go ahead.
Is I want to contract. There was a type of price range.
You getting that, Sloan? I'm not getting hardly.
No, you got a bad connection on your end, ma'am.
Well, I typed it because I know it's a bad connection.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I see your question in the chat box. So we'll drop you out and type in your question if you have any more questions, ma'am. Thank you. So her question is, I wanted to address the 10-year contract. With the new homes being built, the cost of water should be lowered.
I'm not sure why, because you still got to purify it. You still got to run it through the water plant. You still got to dig the lines. You still have the impact fee. You still got the meter fees. I don't think it's a volume related thing. Everybody'd like the rates to be low, and I can appreciate that, but yes, I don't understand the logic in that.
All right, gotcha. Thank you, Miss Roxanne. We got another question. And it's popped up on the screen. Can you see it, sir?
It's real tiny.
Yep. Sorry. So your department is not being ran efficiently. I had lived in Missouri and California and never had those issues. So can you talk a little bit about the customer service? I'm just ranging from that might be what the citizen is talking about there.
Well, I think it's always frustrating. I kind of touched on that earlier about the lack of being able to talk to people personally anymore. And certainly if he has any suggestions of what we could do to improve it, that'd be great. I think a lot of people complain and complain, but don't have any solutions. And we'd certainly have an open mind and be willing to listen to any of those, find out how they did. I'm not sure I care about how they did it in California, to be honest with you, but Missouri might be a different story.
Yes, sir. Got you there. All right. Well, if anyone out there has any questions there, I'm going to take a quick 30-second pause here to let you get logged in. We thank you for your time and everything, but we want to make sure we give you the ample chance and opportunity out there. So the link is right there on the screen. If you have any questions or whatnot, so we're going to take a quick 30-second pause here, and we will be right back.
I don't think that there has ever been a person that
All right, Mr. Mayor, we're back on.
All right, good.
So wanted to try to refresh some of those functions there that we have in here. Stand by 1 second. All right, sir. So what I'm going to do is I just want to make sure, and I'm looking at questions that were posed recently as we've been online here through the Nextdoor app. I think you have talked about some of those, but one question, I don't know if you mentioned it, but about the rate increase, is there any other planned rate increases?
That they will probably be, I'm sure there will be. I don't know if anything that goes down much, and I don't even notice, I don't remember getting any phone calls about the 13% decrease we had. Most of the comments about rates seem to be just around one way, and that's when they go up. But I'm sure there will be some continued rate increases. The reason being that we will have the bond for that water line to the Broad River that'll have to continue to be paid for. And so hopefully our rates will not go up at the same rate that they do in Columbia. But I'm sure there will be some continued rate increases, and any of those rate increases that we do are basically dependent on the advice that we get from consultants on what we need to do to make sure we have the revenue to pay the payments on the bond consistent with the requirements from the Department of Commerce and that situation.
Yes, sir. So, let's talk about COVID for a little bit. On the COVID-19 side, with folks that might be having financial difficulty with paying their bills and things like that, is there any financial assistance from your department or the town to help citizens in their bill pay?
I don't. I know for residents of Fairfield County and the town of Winnsboro, I believe that the county, Fairfield County, had some funding available to help some people with their bills. Of course, for a period of time there, for about 2 to 4 months, I don't remember exactly how long it was, we were not turning any water off of people's residency, cutting their water off for non-payment of bills. What we've encouraged them to do, if they weren't able to do it, if they will come in and try to set up a payment plan, we do that. The other thing that we do is kind of like we do with the other utilities. Water and sewer is usually pretty stable. You drink about the same amount of water and you use just about the same amount of sewer, other than unless you're washing or watering your lawn, or unless you're fortunate enough to have a swimming pool. But what we try to do is get people to come in if they're having difficulty in those high usage months, and see if we can do an averaging of their bill so that they pay the same thing every month, do an average use of that. And I believe we offer that to the Blythewood folks too. And Tripp's nodding his head.
Okay.
So we do have an averaging thing there. We realize that people have been under pretty hard times with this COVID pandemic, and we've made every opportunity that we can to work with people, and did have that moratorium on any water valve shutoffs for a while.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we got another Blythewood resident on, Mr. Jim.
Averaging of their bill, an average use of that, and I believe we offer that to the Blythewood folks too.
Mr. Jim, if you're looking at it through YouTube, if you could cut the YouTube link down, we're getting the feedback from YouTube.
Have been under pretty hard times with this COVID pandemic, and we've made every opportunity.
All right, we'll give them a chance there and let that catch up.
I don't see how people figure out all this.
Mr. Jim, are you there? Oh,
It's kind of crazy.
You got your microphone muted, sir.
How about now? Is my mic
There you
off
go.
now?
Yes, sir. You're on now. Thank you for joining us. If you got your YouTube link on, kind of cut that down a little bit. We get that feedback.
The sound.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. How's
All right.
that?
Yes, sir. That's much better. You're on with
Now,
Mayor
I can't
Gaddy.
hear you. Can you hear me?
I can
Yes,
hear
sir.
you.
All right. What's
I
your
can't hear
question?
you guys though.
Okay.
Hmm.
You cut your YouTube on just a little bit.
Well,
so you
let me
can
ask
hear.
the question. What does it cost to purge a line if they come out to purge it?
It costs nothing. It's a free service. Zero.
Zero? Zero. Okay.
Read my lips. Zero.
Yes, sir. Did you catch that? Mr. Jim, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Zero. Okay. Read my lips.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Jim, for coming on tonight. All right, sir. Make sure we got everyone on the chat box.
I don't see how you do all that stuff. I ain't got a clue.
Yeah, it's I'm looking at two different screens over here, so kind of an orchestrated event for one man.
Well, my hat's off to you.
Yes, sir. So I had to learn this also. So when the pandemic hit, but I don't see anyone else in here. To the residents out there, I want you to know that, you know, we As far as Blythewood and the town of Winnsboro, we have a great relationship. I think platforms like this is something of the new beginning. It only gets better. So we learn by doing as we moving towards a virtual piece where we can all get together at simultaneously at one time. We got a good number of folks that's been watching us live. I can see the counter up here on the other screen, sir. So we got a good number of residents that are watching and posing questions. So at this time, I don't want to hold you guys up. I don't see anyone else coming in, and I got a question for Mayor Franklin. Are you still on?
Absolutely. Yes,
All
sir.
right, got a question that's popped up on the screen from Tammy. Mayor Franklin, could the franchise fee for Blythewood be reduced to supplement the automated meter costs and the implementation into Cobblestone?
That is certainly a good idea. I will take that up and we'll look at that. Our franchise fee just went, as Mayor Gaddy earlier alluded to, 3% for the last 20 some years. We finally moved it up to the average of the municipalities in the state of South Carolina, which was 5%. However, we will certainly look at that. Wherever we can help out, we will.
Yes, sir.
Good
All
question.
righty. Thank you, sir. And Mayor Gaddy, you have a question. Thank you, Mayor Franklin. From Ms. Tammy also regarding the increase in costs due to the drought in 2008. When will the increased costs be paid off and prices go down?
That's a good question. I think that was a 20-year bond that we had.
Okay.
I think it coincides pretty much with wasn't the contract that we did with Blythewood, wasn't it 20 years? I think it
Yes, sir.
coincided with the length of the bond.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Ms. Tammy? I'm watching the chat box. All righty. For the residents out there, we're gonna end this. We wanted to stay within the hour time frame, but certainly we don't want to end without giving you that opportunity to ask your questions. As Mayor Gaddy stated, and I'm going to give him the closing floor. That if you have any questions or need any assistance, hang on one second. Yes, you can. Miss Tammy has another question. But most certainly reach out to the town of Winnsboro. Reach out to us on this side, town council and the mayor. If you're having issues and can't get something resolved, we'll be glad to help if possible. But I do want platforms like this at least once a year to kind of give an update on water quality and things like that, to explain those. And most certainly, hopefully, sir, we'll be out of COVID-19 response and we can go back to face, which, I would prefer also. And I know you strongly wanted a face-to-face meeting, but in this time for the COVID-19, we had to take those precautions there. We do have a question from Ms. Tammy here. So how realistic is it for a water bill to go from $30 to $350 in 37 days?
I think, how realistic is it?
Yes, sir.
If it were my bill, I'd be questioning it.
Yeah.
We can, all she has to do is, certainly sometimes people have leaks underneath their house they don't know about. And, but we'll certainly be glad to send our folks out to make sure we don't see a problem on our end of it. But I think for a water bill to go up 9 or 10 times, I'd be calling Mr. Peak and asking him to look at it if it were at my house.
Yes, sir. So I do want to ask one question too. Thank you, Miss Tammy. If you have any more questions, just chat in, tune in. But about the person that you talked about that had the enormous water bill that was like 20 something thousand gallons. But it,
21,000.
yes, sir. So it was like 3 months worth of water bills.
Correct.
So when situations happen like that for residents, is there any, to have to come out of pocket and pay an enormous bill like that, is a burden. That's a financial burden on anyone.
Our financial department's more than happy to work with them on that.
Yep.
And stagger it out so that it's not a one-time bill payment. That wasn't that lady's fault.
Yes.
Okay. And certainly when we have something like that, then we try to bend over backwards to try to make it as painless as possible to get that bill paid, with the realization that that's going to increase her bill over the next 2 or 3 months some, but she doesn't have to pay it all at once. I think our folks are pretty good about working with our clientele if they have an issue such as that.
Yes, sir. All right. So I don't see any more in the chat. So I think what we can do safely is I'll give you the moment there to have any remarks that you want to make to the residents here in Blythewood. I personally, just as Mayor Franklin, thank you for your time. Thank you to the director there, the water department, with you for his time there with you tonight. I want to give you this moment here to kind of, talk to the people out there and help. Hold on, I got one other question. I'm sorry. So when we get ready, but we got questions pouring in. I want to make sure folks get it. So this question in here from our very own former Mayor Keith Bailey of Blythewood. And do you foresee any water shortfalls or systems improvements that will financially impact customers? And
I don't know of any. I don't know of any big projects or anything. I think we're in pretty good shape as far as the sustainable water supply for Winnsboro. There's a possibility. There's always a possibility you may have to, as Blythewood grows, and you're obviously a very rapidly growing part of the Central Midlands. I mean, the Blythewood zip code and the Lexington zip code are the two fastest growing zip codes in the Central Midlands area. That includes Richland, Lexington, Fairfield, and Newberry. There may be some increased costs, things like having to build another water tank to supply, as the area grows. And I think those water tanks, what do they call, $600,000 to $1 million? I mean, they ain't cheap. And I know we've had some superficial discussions that we may need to put another water tank in the not too distant future. There's still areas of Blythewood that do not have water that are in the city limits. I think some of the areas down Boney Road, and if probably the best way to supply those sort of things is I don't think that we can really ask for a grant to supply that water to them because we're in Fairfield County. But if the town of Blythewood were able to get a grant to supply water to areas that are in their city limits that are now living on well water, I think it's something that we'd certainly look forward to working with the town of Blythewood on trying to expand those services, and may be of benefit to some of the existing customers too, in that you'd be able to loop those lines instead of being dead ends, so that water's continually flowing and you don't run into those problems where you have to purge lines. And we have to purge lines in Winnsboro and Ridgeway and out in the county too. We've got about 2,000 customers or so, and out of the city limits and that are in Fairfield County that that we drop the rates in Blythewood to those same rates. And we have lines out like that we have to purge those lines periodically also. Ideally, what you'd like to have a big circular system where all the lines that are connected are interconnected in a circular way, so that you don't have to have the problem where you're having to purge those lines. I mean, there's nothing worse than having to pour that water out on the ground. It was especially painful in 2008 when we were having a drought, and you had to go purge lines because they didn't have enough residence on it to keep the flow adequately to decrease the bacterial growth. And that was actually one of the things that prompted us to change our purification process to the chloramines.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate that invite, and I definitely will reach out to you to connect to your grants person there in the town to look at.
I'm sure that our grant person, Cindy, who worked for the Central Midlands Planning or the Central Midlands organization, the COG, worked there before she came to work for us, and I'm sure that she'd be glad to help y'all and work on any grants that might be available. She's a very good resource.
Yes, sir.
And I think I can speak for her and our administration that she'd be glad to help you any way she could.
I definitely would take you up on that.
It's been pretty successful for us in the water and sewer stuff that we've done. We've been able to replace some of the older lines and to provide some new utilities to folks. So it's you really need a good grant person like that to help you get those things.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Well, Mayor Franklin, do you have any closing remarks, sir?
No, once again, I just want to thank y'all both for hosting. Mayor Gaddy, thank you for your time. It's been very beneficial, and always dialogue is better than innuendo and rumor. And thank you for entertaining our citizens. Thank you, Councilman Griffin, for hosting this. We appreciate both of you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your time. You have a good night, sir. All right, Mayor Gaddy, same here. Thank you for coming on here. And our door is always open, and I'm glad your door is also. Thank you for talking to our residents here. And let's keep this dialogue open and work just like we've been doing. So thank you for everything you do. Stay safe, you and your family, during COVID-19.
Thank you very much, and same to you. And I think we've had a good working relationship with Blythewood for 20 years and look forward to having one for many years to come.
Yes, sir. I'm going to say this before we close, because I didn't address it. We talked a little bit by text message this morning, you know, about the voting situation there. I'm glad to work with you on this with the issues from the constituents here that reach out to me. I feel that, you know, we got that great working relationship, and I look forward to the future.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to it, Sloan. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You have a good night.
Also.
All right, Community Talk. Thank you guys for being with us through the platform this evening. We want to continue these pieces to reach out to each one of you when you're having issues or got questions in the community. As always, stay safe, keep God first. He'll love you when no one else does. So y'all have a good night.